Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Charles John Huffman Dickens was born on February 7, 1812, in Portsmouth, Hampshire, England. He was the most popular English novelist of the Victorian era, responsible for some of English literature's most iconic characters. A Tale of Two Cities, 1859, is a novel set in London and Paris before and during the French Revolution. With over 200 million copies sold, it ranks among the most famous works in the history of fictional literature. Dickens died at his home on June 9, 1870, after suffering from another stroke, contrary to his wish to be buried at Rochester Cathedral in an inexpensive, unostentatious, and strictly private manner. He was laid to rest in the Poets' Corners of Westminster Abbey. Preface. The idea for the story came as I was acting in Mr. Wilkie Collins' drama, The Frozen Deep, with friends and family. I had written this based on my own experience. I wrote about the condition of the French people and during the Revolution with the help of trustworthy witnesses. I hope this creates a better understanding of that terrible time, though nothing can add to the philosophy of Mr. Carlyle's wonderful book. Book the first, Regard to Life. Chapter 1, The Period. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of many contradictions, an extraordinary period. The year was 1775. France was prosperous. Unlike England, cruel acts were performed in the name of Christianity. A young person could have his hand cut off, his tongue pierced, or even be burnt alive, all because he failed to honor monks he had seen from afar. In England, Charles roared. Armed men performed burglaries day and night. Families hid their furniture in warehouses if they were going out to town. Traders turned out to be criminals who attacked their fellow traders. Robbers intercepted and stole the mail. Prisoners rioted against their guards. Thieves stole from noblemen day and daylight. Gunmen and ordinary people fought each other for stolen goods. These acts were so common that executions were never-ending. As these events took place, the kings and queens of England and France continued ruling over the people as before, unaware of the revolution that was about to come. Chapter 2, The Mayor. It was the late Friday night in November. Jarvis Lorry and two other passengers walked into the thick mud alongside the mayor carriage as it made its way up Shooter's Hill. Heads drooping, tears swaying, the horses struggled through the mud, but the coachman's whip forced the horse to work harder until they finally made to the top. The guard got down to open the coach door for the passengers, but then the coachman saw a horse galloping toward them. He called out to the guard, who aimed his gun at the approaching figure. "Stop, or I'll shoot." The horse slowed down. A man's voice called out, "Is that the Dover mayor?" "Never mind what it is," the guard replied. "What are you?" "Is that the Dover mayor?" "What do you want to know?" I'm looking for a passenger named Jarvis Lorry. Jarvis Lorry's companions eyed him distrustfully. Stay where you are, the guard called out to the figure in the mist. Mr. Lorry, please answer him. What's the matter? Jarvis Lorry asked in a slightly shaking voice. Who wants me, Jerry? Yes, Mr. Lorry. What is it? I've been sent by T and Co. I know him, Jarvis said as he made his way to the road. The two passengers quickly entered the coach and shut the door. Let him come near. Everything's fine. The muddy Jerry and his horse slowly appeared through the mist. Jerry handed Mr. Lorry a note. Silently, then aloud, Jarvis read the note by the light of the coach's lamps. Wait at Dover for Ma'am Celeste. Jerry, tell them my answer is recalled to life. That's a strange answer, Jerry hoarsely replied as he got back into his saddle. Give them that message so they will know I have received the note. Be careful. Good night. Jarvis Lorry got into the coach door. His companions kept themselves busy, hiding their watches and purses in their boots. Now they pretended to be asleep. Meanwhile, Jerry got off the horse, whipped the mud from his face, and shook out the rain from his hat. Once the Dovermere carriage vanished from his view, Jerry began to descend. Speaking to his Marge, he said, "Recalled to life." What a strange message. Chapter 3. The Night Shadows. After making several stops at a pub to drink, Jerry returned to Tarson's Bank via Temple Bar. He needed to deliver the message to the night watchman, so it would reach the proper authorities. It was a very dark night, and his mare shied away from the windows on the road. Meanwhile, Jarvis Lorry kept on thinking about a thin, 45-year-old man with prematurely white hair. In his imagination, he asked the man these questions over and over. How long have you been buried? 18 years. Have you lost hope of ever getting out? Yes, a long time ago. Do you know you are recalled to life? I've been told so. Are you happy that you're recalled to life? I'm not sure. Shall I show her to you? Will you come and see her? The man's answer always changed at this last question. Sometimes it was, wait, it would kill me if I saw her too soon, or take me to her, or I don't know her, I don't understand. In his mind, Jarvis tried to get the man out of his grave with a spade, a key, and his own hand until he was free. He succeeded, but then the man turned to dust. Jarvis thought of the man until night turned to day. He lowered the window and looked out. Though the earth was cold and wet, the sky was clear, and the sun was bright, calm, and beautiful. 18 years, Jarvis said as he looked at the sun. Gracious God, to be buried alive for 18 years. Chapter 4. The Preparation. Jarvis Lorry waited at the Royal George Hotel in Dover until Miss Manette, a pretty young lady with golden hair and blue eyes, came to see him. Your father was my client 20 years ago when I worked at the French office of Tarson's Bank, Jarvis told her. We weren't friends, just business contacts. But weren't you the one who brought me to England when I turned 2 and became an orphan? Yes, but I never saw you again ever since. I have no time for friends or relationships. I'm a very busy man. But not today. Your father has been found. He is still alive. He is using another name and staying at the old servant house in Paris. We are going to France to get him. You must keep this secret. Miss Manette sat quietly in her chair, ready to faint. Hark! Jarvis called out. A wild-looking, red-haired woman in a tight red dress and a red bonnet came bursting into the room. With one strong hand, she pushed Jarvis against the nearest bar. After yelling at the insufferent spoon smelling salt, cold water, and vinegar, carefully laid Miss Manette on the sofa to take care of her. Don't you tell her what you had to tell her without scaring her to death. You caught at being a banker? The woman scolded Jarvis. I hope she will be okay. Jarvis said, No, thanks to you. Jarvis humbly asked the woman, Will you accompany Miss Manette to Paris? Someone doesn't stay on an island when one meant to travel by sea, of course. Miss Pross replied. Chapter 5. The Wine Shop. A large case of red wine fell on the narrow street of Saint Antoine in Paris. Laughing, the poor people used broken mugs, handkerchiefs, and their own hands to drink the previous wine and feed it to their babies. A tall man wrote blood on the walls with the wine. Defarge, the thick-necked, strong-looking owner of the wine shop, came out and stopped him. Gaspard, stop that, Defarge told the man. Do you want them to bring you a mental hospital? He covered Gaspard's writing with some mud. Gaspard simply danced away like a clown, holding on to one of the shoes he had kicked off like a toy. Once the wine was gone, St. Antoine became gloomy once more, a place where everyone was poor and hungry. Defarge returned to his wine shop, where his wife, Madame Defarge, sat behind the counter and knitted. Waiting for him were Jarvis and Miss Manette. After speaking with Jarvis, he led the two to a dark and dirty compound of houses. Has he changed much? Jarvis asked him. Yes, Defarge answered seriously, before striking the wall in a gruff grief for his own old master. Come inside, Jarvis said to Miss Manette. He tried to be as business-like as possible, but a tear shone on his cheek. I'm afraid of him, she replied, trembling. Jarvis helped Miss Manette inside a dark room. Loudly, methodically, Defarge walked to where the window was. A white-haired man sat on a low bench with his face toward the window, making shoes. Chapter 6. The Shoemaker. He had white hair, dark eyebrows, and bright eyes, and wore an old ragged shirt yellowed with age. You have a visitor, Defarge said to him as Jarvis approached. Tell him what kind of shoe it is, and the maker's name. After a long silence, the man asked, What were you saying? I said, Won't you tell Monsieur about the shoes you are working on? It's a lady's working shoes. Who made it? 105 North Tower, the man replied. Jarvis, Monsieur Manette. Don't you remember me? Miss Manette approached him, crying. The man looked at her and said, Are you the prison guard's daughter? No. Who are you? He held her arm and felt a strange thrill. Carefully he touched her golden hair. He went back to work, but stopped again to open the rag necklace he wore. There were 2 long strands of golden hair in it. It's the same. How can this be? Are you my wife? Miss Manette just embraced her father, and they worked together. Please leave me with him, she said to the man. I will take care of him until you return. And then we will take him away from here. Jarvis and the father returned to feed Monsieur Manette and dress him in his new clothes. Soon he was in carriage with his old shoemaking tools and his daughter. Along their journey, Jarvis looked at the man he had rescued and remembered a question in his mind. Hope you care to be recalled to life? The answer was, Sir, I'm not sure. Book the 2nd, The Golden Thread. Chapter 1. 5 years later, Jerry Cruncher, Turson Bank's messenger and odd job man, woke up and saw his wife on her knees praying. He threw his muddy boots at her. I was only praying, his wife explained, praying against me. I wasn't praying against you. I was praying for you. Jerry called his son to him and said, Look at your mother doing. She's praying so you won't get anything to eat. As he cleaned his boots and ate his breakfast, he continued to scold his wife. Stop praying. You'll give me bad luck. But close to 9 o'clock, Jerry calmed down and walked to Tarson's bank with his son. Using the wooden store his son carried every day for him, Jerry sat in his usual station near the window of Tarson's bank, closest to Temper Bar, and waited for his next job as an honest tradesman. Soon an indoor messenger from Tarson's called out, Porter wanted. Hooray, father, you got early work coming. As he waited for his father to return, young Jerry sat on the store and looked at the piece of straw his father had been chewing. I wonder why his fingers are always rusty, young Jerry muttered to himself. Why, there's no iron rust here. Chapter 2. A Sight. Mr. Lorry needs a messenger, the clerk told Jerry. Go to the Old Bailey, find out where the witnesses are, and show this note to the doorkeeper. He'll let you into the courtroom. Jerry arrived at the Old Bailey, where Mr. Lorry was. The courtroom was packed with people. What's on? He whispered to the man next to him. The treason case, the man replied. They'll hang him, slice him, burn him alive, and chop him into quarters. If he's guilty, oh, he'll be found guilty, the man confidently answered. The doorkeeper handed Jerry's note to Jarvis Lorry. After some coughing and singing, Jerry finally attracted Jarvis's attention. What have you two got to do with this case? The man asked. I have an idea, Jerry replied. Everyone soon stared at the prisoner who entered the courtroom. He was a young, handsome man, about 25 years old, dressed in dark clothes, with his long hair tied in a ribbon. Though he looked pale, he seemed calm, quietly bowing down before the judge. The man, Charles Darnay, was on trial for supporting France's war efforts against England. Charles Darnay looked to his left, where a young lady and a white-haired gentleman sat. They are obviously father and daughter. Who are they? The people whispered that Jerry stuck the rest from his fingers. Jerry soon heard the whispered reply. Witnesses for the prisoner. The judge leaned back to watch Charles Darnay as the Attorney General began his case against him. Chapter 3. A Disappointment. Charles Darnay was accused of secretly giving France lists of England's battle plans for the past 5 years. The Attorney General presented 2 witnesses against him. John Borsad and Roger Plea. Sire, the lawyer of Charles Darnay, showed that John Borsad borrowed money from Charles Darnay, but never paid him back. He was a gambler who had been imprisoned 6 times. Roger Plea, Charles' employee 4 years ago, claimed he saw Charles showing lists to Frenchmen, but Plea was also Borsad's friend. The Attorney General then called the witnesses for Charles Darnay: Jarvis Lorry, Dr. Manette, and his daughter. Charles could not stop looking at Miss Manette. She was so beautiful, it took his breath away. As Sire questions Roger Plea, a man threw a note at him. After reading it, Sire asked the witness, "Are you sure it was the prisoner?" "Yes, look at that gentleman," Sire said, pointing to the man who had tossed the note to him. He looked at the prisoner. "Do you look alike?" To everyone's surprise, Charles and Carton looked alike, even though Carton looked ragged and dirty. John Borsad is a hired spy, and Roger Plea is his accomplice. My client is innocent, Sire told the judge. As the jury planned their verdict, Miss Manette fainted. "Somebody please help the lady," Carton said. As Dr. Manette left with his daughter, he approached Jarvis and said, "Let me talk to the prisoner. I will let him. The lady will be fine." "A respectable bank gentleman like you can't be caught speaking with someone like him." After telling Charles that Miss Manette was going to be fine, Carton asked him, "What verdict do you expect?" "The worst," Charles replied. "They'll withdraw their case against you," Carton said confidently. Jamie had fallen asleep outside the courtroom, and he awoke to excited people storming the court. Jarvis found Jamie and handed him a note. "Acquitted. If you had sent the message recalled to life again, I should have known what you meant this time." Chapter 4. Congratulatory. Dr. Manette, Miss Manette, Jarvis, and Sire stood in the dark passageway. Sire, a loud, stout man who looked like he was 50 when he was only 30, grandly announced that they were all tired and needed to go home. Dr. Manette looked at Charles strangely and told Miss Manette he wanted to go home. Carton joined Jarvis and Charles after the others had left. He was drunk, "So you can talk to Mr. Darnay now." "Darnay now?" Carton said to Jarvis. "Funny what a businessman can do when he has to choose between his conscience and money." Annoyed, Jarvis quickly said good night and left. Laughing, Carton turned to Charles and invited him to dinner. "It must feel wonderful to be back in the world again. I just want to forget I am a part of this world. The only good thing about it is the wine, Cotton said to Charles over dinner. How does it feel to have a lady feel pity and weep for you? Is the trial worth her attention? He asked Charles. Charles kept quiet. Do you think I like you? You have acted like you do, but I think you don't. You're right, then. Do you think I'm drunk? You know I am. Do you know why I drink? It's because I care for no one, and no one cares for me. I'm sorry to hear that. You could be doing something better with your time. Once he was alone in the room, Cotton stared at his reflection in the mirror. You could have been once, Miss Manette defended. Come on, admit it. You envy him. Chapter 5. The Lampara. Mr. Stavach was a hard drinker, even if he was on his way becoming a successful lawyer. But though he was smooth-talking and aggressive, he was terrible with paperwork. This was where Sidney Carton, the most either unpromising of men, became Stavach's greatest ally. Carton often worked with Stavach in bars, but tonight they worked in Stavach's office. You did good work with those witnesses today, Stavach said to Carton. I'm always good, am I not? Carton gruffly answered. Same word, Sidney, said Stavach. In a good mood 1 minute, in a bad mood the next. Same old Sidney came old bad luck. Even when we were schoolmates in Paris, you were always somewhere and I was always nowhere. And who's to blame for that? Not you. You were always a leader, driven and ambitious, unlike me. Let's not talk about my gloomy past. Let's talk about something good, like the pretty Miss Manette. Who? Carton asked. The doctor's daughter, Miss Manette. Don't you find her pretty? No. I thought you were interested in her. She fainted in front of me. That's why I was interested. I've had enough to drink. I'm going to bed, Carton replied. Stavach led Carton out into the street. The air was cold and sad. The sky was dark and gloomy. The rivers were dark. Everything seemed like lifeless deserts. As Carton climbed the stairs leading to his room, he saw fleeting images of honorable ambition, sacrifice, and hard work. He lay down, stirred rest, on his dirty bed and wept silently. Chapter 6. Hundreds of people. Jarvis visited Dr. Manette and Lucy for dinner. As he waited for the two, he spoke with Miss Pross, the strong woman from Dover. Now the Manette servant. How are you? Jarvis asked Miss Pross. Tired, Miss Pross replied. I've been to turn away hundreds of Miss Manette's suitors. There never was, or will there be any men worthy of my ladybird except my brother Solomon, if he hadn't been made that mistake. Miss Pross's brother had lost all of his sister's possessions from gambling and left her with nothing. There were no hundreds of suitors that came for dinner, as Miss Pross claimed, just Charles Darnay. Dr. Manette was especially alert and talkative with Charles. Talked about the tower. Have you been to the tower? Charles asked the doctor. My daughter Lucy and I have seen it. Dr. Manette replied. The workmen found an old dungeon inside the tower. There were many carriages on the wards, made by prisoners, dates, names, complaints, prayers. There was a cornerstone in the tower, carved with the word dig, dig. Charles said,
Underneath the cornerstone was ashes of burnt paper and leather. Obviously, the prisoner had written something he wanted to hide from the jailer. Suddenly, Dr. Manette looked quite terrified. "Your heir!" exclaimed Lucy. "No, drops rained and surprised me. Let's go in." Carton arrived for tea time and stayed with them as the rain developed into a heavy storm. Jarvis left with them when the storm cleared. "What a night, Jarvis," said to Jerry. "The storm could bring the dead out of their graves." "Never seen the night myself, or do I plan to," Jerry replied. Monsignor in town. The Monsignor was one of the most powerful lords in France, a middle-aged man with a face like a pear mask. All he cared for was his money and power. Monsignor took a ride in his carriage. The poor common people ran for their lives as they avoided the carriage, but as it turned to a street corner, one of the wheels bounced. The horse jumped and the people screamed. A charwoman in a nightcap took something from underneath the horse's feet and laid it down on the basement of the fountain. Wet and muddied, he howled like a wild animal. "What's he crying about?" Monsieur asked. "Pardon, Monsieur the Marquis," a ragged man answered meekly. "It is his child, killed, dead," the man screamed at the carriage. "I can't believe you people can't take care of yourselves or your children," Monsieur said. "You're always in my way. How can I be sure my horses aren't injured because of you?" He tossed his driver a gold coin to give to the sobbing man. Defarge came. The man in the nightcap went to him and sobbed on his shoulder. "Be brave, Gaspard," Defarge said. "It's better that your child died quickly and painlessly." "Oh my gosh." "Who are you?" Monsieur asked Defarge. "I'm Defarge, the wine shop owner." "Oh my gosh, that's terrible." Monsieur threw Defarge another gold coin. He returned to his seat, but soon Defarge threw his coin back at him and left. "Dogs," Monsieur muttered. "I'd crush you all if I could." No one spoke, but the woman who was knitting looked at Monsieur. But the nobleman didn't notice. "Go on," he commanded the driver. Chapter 8. Monsieur and Country. Monsieur traveled to the village post office, looking at the peasants who stopped working to see him. He called one of them to come near. "Didn't I pass you by on my way here?" "Yes, Monsieur the Marquis. What were you looking at so intently?" "I saw a man hanging on to your carriage, Monsieur the Marquis." "Who was it?" "I don't know him. He is not from my village, but he was very white and tall." "You did well," Monsieur said to the man. "Even if he was just a commoner," he then called out to the postmaker, "Gabelle, make sure that stranger is captured if he enters the village." "Yes, Monsieur," Gabelle said. Then he asked the man, "Did you see where that man went? He escaped by the hillside." Monsieur continued traveling. There was a tiny burial ground at the highest point of the hill. It was the forester's grave. The forester's window knelt in front of it, praying, but it ran towards Monjane. Once she saw his carriage. "What do you want?" Monjane asked the woman. "All I ask is for a piece of stone or wood that I can place over my husband's grave to show where he lies. I'm afraid he will be forgotten." Instead of helping her, Monjane just continued on his way. Night came, and he finally arrived at the chateau. Has Monsieur Charles arrived from England? Not yet, Monsieur. Chapter 9. Gorgon's Head. Halfway through Monsieur's dinner, his nephew Charles Darnley arrived. "I have returned as you expected, even if it means my death." "It means my death," Charles said. "Don't say death," Monsieur replied. "I don't think you'll stop it. If it did happen, for all I know, you may have even made my arrival more suspicious than it already was. If it had not been for your trouble with the law, I would probably be in jail by now," Charles said. "I would do that to protect our family's honor," Monsieur said. "Our family has done so much evil, everyone in France must hate us," Charles said. "I would do that to protect our family's honor," Monsieur said. "Our family has done so much evil, everyone in France must hate us," Charles said. "I hope so. It's an honor for our great family to be hated by the poor and lowly. Fear and slavery keep the dogs obedient to the whip. If you won't protect our family's honor, I will. I don't want to be a part of a system that I hate, but I have no choice but to honor my mother's last request. Why don't you just accept your fate? I don't care about my inheritance. I don't care about France. I'd rather go back to England. Go to bed. You're exhausted. Let's talk tomorrow," Monsieur said to his nephew before heading off to bed himself. Night turned to day. Monsieur lay on his bed with an expression on his face like the Gorgon status is in front of the chateau. Gaspard's knife was buried into the heart. On the knife was a note. "Drive him fast to his home, Jacques." Chapter 10. The Promise. A year passed. Charles Darnley, who was a professor in French literature in England, one day he visited Dr. Manette. The doctor sat in his armchair by the window, reading. "Charles, so happy to see you," the doctor said. "We've been waiting for you for the past 3 or 4 days. Driver and Corton were here yesterday and expecting your return as well." "Where is Miss Manette?" "She just stepped out, but don't worry, she'll be home soon. I knew she was going to be out today. I'm here to talk to you." "Come closer so we can talk," the doctor said. Charles brought his chair closer. "I love your daughter deeply, Dr. Manette," he confessed. "Does she know?" "No, sir." "May I ask if she has any suitors?" "Corton and Sire come over to visit. If it could be any one of them, or both." "What do you need from me?" "If Lucy ever comes to you to talk about love, would you please tell her how much I love her?" "I promise," the doctor said as he shook Charles' hand. "She is everything to me, more than suffering, more than wrong." Dr. Manette stopped talking, and a blank look crossed his face. "What was you saying?" he said to Charles. Charles was surprised by the doctor's behavior, but that he forgot what he wanted to say. But he quickly recovered, saying, I want to tell you why I changed my name when I came to England. I wish to tell you who I really am and why I am here in this country. Stop, not now, Doctor said. If Lucy ever returns your love, then you may tell me on the morning of the wedding day. Do you promise me that? Yes. She'll be home soon. You better leave. God bless you. It was night time when Charles left. Lucy came home and went looking for her father, but he was not in the reading chair. Lucy saw him inside his room, hammering away using his old shoemaking tools. What shall I do? Lucy said, and frightened. She knocked on his door and quietly called him out. They walked up and down the stairs for a long time, just like the time when he was just sick, until everything returned to normal. Chapter 11. A companion picture. Mix another bowl of punch. I have something to tell you, Sire said to Carton. Sidney Carton has been working very hard for several nights. He had already worked 6 hours that night and felt terrible. Don't be surprised at what I'm going to tell you. I'm getting married. To whom? Guess. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and my brains are frying in my head. If you want me to guess, then buy me dinner. It's Miss Manette. Sidney began drinking the punches at a fast rate. Now, I don't care about money, Sire said to the Carton. I found her very charming. I'm a rich man. I distinguished a man on his way to success. I'm good for her. Are you surprised? Why should I be? Carton said, drinking more punch. Do you approve of it? Why shouldn't I? You're taking the news well. I'm surprised. In my case, I'm tired of being single. Marrying Miss Manette will be a good move for me. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. You're not well. You don't know the value of money, and you don't take care of yourself. Get married, respectable lady with some property. Have someone to take care of you. Find some respectable lady with some property and marry her. I'll think about it, Carton said. Chapter 12. The Fellow of Delicacy. Sire decided he would propose marriage to Miss Manette before he went to a long vacation, but first he visited Jarvis and Tarson's bank. He found him working in a dusty back office. Hello, how do you do? Sire greeted Jarvis. Can I do anything for you, Mr. Sire? No, I am here to tell you I will propose to your little friend, Miss Manette. Oh dear, why don't you think I am good enough for Miss Manette? Am I not rich or successful? Yes, you are rich and successful, but I don't do anything I wasn't sure of. Are you telling me Miss Manette is a fool to reject me? Sire angrily said. Don't call her that, Jarvis said, blushing. Sorry, but I will not allow any man to be so ungentlemanly and disrespectful towards a lady, even if I am a man of Tarson's bank. There was an awkward silence. Finally, Sire said, Are you telling me not to propose to her? Me, Sire, on the famous King's Bench bar? Yes. Later on that night, Jarvis visited Sire in his office. I'm glad I didn't propose to her. I wasn't sure I was ready for marriage. Anyway, besides, girls are vain and stupid. What? They'll just disappoint you. Thank you for your advice. You were right. Good night. Sire quickly led a confused Jarvis out of the door and lay back on the sofa, sure he had fooled them all. Chapter 13. The Fellow of No Delicacy. Sidney Carton visited Dr. Manette's house regularly. Something the house poured him out of his bed and drew him to it, no matter what time of day it was. One August day, after Sire had forgotten about the marrying matter, Carton visited Lucy. "You don't look well," Lucy observed. "Of course, I'm wasting my life," he replied. "You can always change. It's too late for that," Carton answered. He covered his face with his hand. There was a silence as he silently wept. When he said to her, "If it was possible for you to love a drunken, poor creature like me, I would be alive and happy. But I'm glad that's not the case. Even if I were happy, would you bring you much unhappiness? Even if I cannot love you, can I not save you?" Lucy said tearfully. "No, but I want you to know that you are the last dream of my soul. Because of you, I have been thinking of starting over. I know that's foolish dreams that will never come true, but I want you to know you inspired it. But that dream can still come true. Why don't you try?" "I don't deserve to dream, but I wanted to remember this moment when I opened my heart to you," Carton said. "Then will you please keep this secret between us?" "I promise," Lucy said. Carton kissed Lucy's hand on his way out. He said to her, "Don't cry. I'm not worth it crying over. But remember, I will always love you." 14. Chapter 14. The Honest Tradesman. Larry Cruncher sat on his footstool while his son stayed beside him with a funeral procession passed by. "Whose funeral is it?" Jerry asked one of the men on the rod in the crowd. "Oh, it was Jerry Cruncher." "Roger Clyde," the man told him, "Old Bailey's spy." Jerry remembered the trial. "I've seen him. After chasing the one only mourner inside the carriage, Jerry and some other people climbed up the roof of the carriage. Roger Clyde was buried in the old church of Saint Pancras. Jerry stayed behind the churchyard. He visited a surgeon on his way back, and then fetched his son at Tarson's so that they could come home for dinner. "I got to work tonight. Don't you go praying again," Jerry warned his wife. "May I go with you?" his son asked. "No, I'm going fishing. Now, go to bed." Young Jerry secretly followed his father. Oh, it was Larry. Father and another man to the churchyard. He watched in horror as his father and his companion began digging a coffin out of its grave to steer its corpse. The body ran back home, thinking the coffin was chasing him all the way up to his bed. He woke up shortly before sunrise on the sound of his father banging his mother's heads against the headboard of his bed. "You're supposed to honor and obey me. Why won't you? A good wife supports his husband's business," Jerry said to his wife, who just wept. The following morning, Jerry and his son walked along the Fleet Street with their wooden store. "Father, what's the resurrection man?" young Jerry asked. "He's a businessman. What does he sell?" "His goods are scientific goods." "Like people's bodies?" "Yeah, I'd like to be the resurrection man when I grow up." Chapter 15. Knitting. Defarge, his new friend Jacques, and the road worker, and 3 fellow revolutionaries secretly met inside the room of where Dr. Manette once stayed. Here, Jacques told them of what happened to Gaspard. the man who hung onto Mongena's carriage a year ago and killed him. He escaped, because I never told Mongena and Marquise who he was, but the soldiers soon captured him. The people thought he would be freed because they petitioned the king. He had to be forgiven. He was just a madman driven to insanity with his child's death. The Defarge delivered the petition to the king himself, but the king's guards just drove him away, said one of the revolutionaries to Jacques. The soldiers even sang and laughed when they hung him by the fountain. They left his dead body hanging there to poison the water. How would the woman and children be able to drink? That's all I know. I left the following night and kept walking until I met Defarge. After a long silence, one of the men said, "Will you wait outside the door?" Jacques, the road worker, left. Defarge and the men reached an agreement. Death to nobility. On Sunday, the Defarge brought Jacques to Versailles to see the king and queen. At first, Jacques cheered them on like the rest, but he quickly became ashamed of what he did. Mongena and Madame Defarge comforted Jacques. Monsieur and Madame Defarge comforted Jacques. "It's all right. People like you make these fools believe that happiness will last forever," Defarge said to him. "It's only normal to cheer and cry over anything that showed off and made noise like them." Madame Defarge said, "You have seen the beautiful people who were soon destroyed for your benefit." Chapter 16. Still knitting. "What did Jacques the policeman tell you?" Madame Defarge asked her husband on the way back to the wine shop. "He says an Englishman, Jean Barsad, is spying against us." As Madame Defarge counted their money for safekeeping, Defarge said to her in a tired voice, "It's taking so long. Vengeance is coming. We might never live to see it. Just wait." John Barsad visited the wine shop the following afternoon. Upon seeing him, Madame Defarge stopped knitting and pinned the rose in her headdress to signal a spy was pregnant. Slowly but surely, people stopped talking and left the wine shop. "How's business?" Barsad asked Madame. "Bad. The people are so poor." "Ah, the unfortunate, the miserable people, so oppressed. As you say, your words, not mine," Madame said. Defarge entered the wine shop. "Good day, Jacques." "I'm Ernest," Defarge lied. "I was telling Madame the poor of Saint Antonio must be so angry after what happened to Gaspard." "I have no idea," Defarge answered. "Do you still hear from Dr. Manette?" "No, his daughter Lucy's marrying the nephew of the Marquise. He's known in England as Charles Darnley." Barsad noticed that Defarge looked slightly worried. He quickly paid for his drink and before leaving said, "I look forward to seeing you again. Could it be true that Miss Manette is marrying him?" Defarge asked his wife once Barsad was gone. "If it is true, then for her sake, I hope her husband never returns to France. Isn't it strange that after all our love and support for Mongena Monsieur Manette. His daughter would marry the dog? Stranger things were happen, Madame replied, going back to her knitting. Chapter 17. One night. Lucy and Dr. Manette sat under a tree one quiet evening. This was a special moment for Lucy and was marrying Charles. For Lucy was marrying Charles Darnley tomorrow. Are you happy? Lucy asked her father. Yes, I'm happy, but are you sure this will not come between us? Yes, if I had not married Charles or any other man because of me, then I won't be the only one suffering. Back in prison, I always wondered if my child lived or died, whether I had a son or a daughter, if my child would even know who I was. Sometimes I imagined I had a daughter who would come in from the moonlight and take me away from my prison cell. She was happily married, and she had taught her children to pity me, even if she always had to bring me back to my Sire. I still blessed her, as happy as I was with those thoughts. I was never as happy with her as I am now with you. Dr. Manette was cheerful during dinner, though he wished he could stop Lucy from marrying. Lucy visited him in his room that night as he slept. He looked so quiet and peaceful, with no signs in how he truly felt. She kissed him one last time before going away. Sunrise came, and the leaves of the tree moved upon his face as softly as Lucy prayed for him. Chapter 18. 9 days. It was Lucy and Charles' wedding days. Jarvis drew his arm around Lucy's waist and said to her, Now, Lucy, don't worry about your father. We'll take care of him while you're on your honeymoon at Warwickshire. Now, let me kiss you before that comes. Dr. Manette finally stepped out of his room, together with Charles. Jarvis noted that though the doctor seemed very calm, he was also very pale and quiet. Lucy and Charles were happily married in church. Dr. Manette was cheerful when he said goodbye to her, saying to Charles, Take care of her, she is yours. But once Lucy and Charles rode away in their carriage for their honeymoon, Jarvis noticed a change in Dr. Manette. He had that scared, lost look once again and held his head as he climbed upstairs to his room. A couple of hours later, Miss Pross told Jarvis, He doesn't know me and is making shoes. Jarvis and Miss Pross went up to Dr. Manette's room. The doctor was sitting on a workbench, working on an unfinished lady's shoes. Look at me, my friend. Think again. You're a doctor, not a shoemaker, Jarvis said to him. But Dr. Manette said nothing. For the first time in his life, Jarvis stopped coming to work at Tarson's bank so he could watch over Dr. Manette. After 9 days, all the doctor did was sit in his bench and stare in the tree outside the window. It seemed he was never going to get well. Chapter 19. An Opinion. On the 10th day, Jarvis was surprised to see Dr. Manette back to normal. He had set aside his shoemaker's bench and tools and was reading by the window as if nothing had happened. As they ate breakfast together, Jarvis carefully informed Dr. Manette of what happened to him by pretending he was speaking about a friend's illness. Does his daughter know? The doctor asked, fully aware if it was he they were talking about. No, only I and other person whom I can trust knows about it. What do you think caused his attack? Something stressful must have caused it. My friend pretended he was a blacksmith while he was Don't you think it is not helpful for him to keep his blacksmith tools? I would advise him to throw those tools away for his daughter's sake. What do you think? After a long while, the doctor replied, for her sake, the tools should be thrown away. But do it when he's not around. After 14 days, Dr. Manette left to join Lucy and Charles. While he was gone, Jarvis, together with Miss Pross, entered the doctor's room with the axe, a saw, a chisel, and a hammer. Jarvis cut the bench to pieces and threw it into the fire. Then he and Miss Pross buried the tools, shoes, and leather in the garden. Chapter 20. A Plea. Sidney Carton visited Lucy and Charles once they turned home from the honeymoon. At one point, Carton pulled Charles aside next to the window and spoke to him. Do you remember the time when I was drunk and I told you I didn't like you? I've forgotten it a long time ago. Your answer doesn't help me forget what I did. I would remember the thing you helped me more than what you said to me. I'm a good-for-nothing dog who has never done any good, has never and never will. But I hope we can be friends, and I hope you will allow me to visit at least 4 times a year. I promise not to be of any trouble to you. Once Carton was gone and Charles were alone with Lucy, she asked him, will you do something for me without asking me why? What is it? Would you please be more considerate and respectful of Mr. Carton? Why? I told you not to ask me, but could you please be nicer to him? He's a wounded man in his heart, even if he doesn't show it. I'm sure if he is a good man, capable of great things. I promise, Charles said, kissing and embracing her. 21. Chapter 21. Echoing Footsteps. The year was 1789. Lucy and Charles' daughters, little Lucy, had just turned 6. These were happy times for Lucy, even when her eldest son passed away. But something was going on in Paris. People armed themselves with all sorts of weapons, guns, knives, wooden and metal board axes. Back in the wine shop, Defarge handed out arms to his own men. He called out to his wife, who came with an axe in her hand and a gun and a knife in her girdle. We are ready, the Buster, with Defarge heading his men, and Madame Defarge heading other women. They rushed onto the Bastille to free the political prisoners. Defarge captured a prison officer and asked him, bring me to 105 North Tower. The prison officer led Defarge and his men to an old prison cell marked A.M., a poor physician. Doctor said Alexander Manette. This is the doctor or the Sire. Using crowbars and knives, Defarge and his men ripped the old prison's bed and chimney open, but there was nothing there. After setting fire on the Bastille, Defarge and the people grabbed the governor who defended the Bastille. The people hit him and stabbed him until he was dead. Then Madame Defarge put her foot on the dead governor's neck and chopped his head off. The people freed the 7 prisoners trapped in Bastille that day and killed 7 men in turn, cutting their heads off and placing them in pikes. The revolution had begun. That's not scary. Chapter 22. The sea star rises. Madame Defarge was knitting her lieutenant, a short, plump woman who called herself the Vengeance, when Defarge came rushing in breathless. Remember Fowlin, the man who told the hungry people to eat grass? The one whom we thought was dead? Or he isn't dead. He has been hiding in the country. He's now on his way on the Hotel de Ville as a prisoner. He looked at his wife and asked, "Are you ready?" Quickly, Madame Defarge placed her knife in her girdle. The Vengeance ran screaming to call out the other woman. Soon men and women were at the Hotel de Ville in Fowlin. Madame Defarge clapped in amusement when she saw Fowlin tied up in ropes, the mob cried like birds of prey. "Bring him to the lamp!" Though Fowlin begged for mercy, the people dragged him from the hotel. They hit them until he was breathless. He filled his mouth with grass and straw. They dragged him to a nearby street corner and hanged him on a lamp. On the first try, the rope broke and he came down screaming. The second try was successful. They soon chopped his head off and placed it on a pike. The mob returned to their homes when night came. The Defarge's wine shop was busy with customers until it was almost morning. Defarge turned to his wife and said, "At least it has come." "Almost," Madame Defarge replied. Chapter 27. One July afternoon, Jacques, the road worker, sat on a heap of stones to rest. Then he saw a man approach. It was Defarge. "How are you, Jacques?" "Fine." They shook hands and sat on a heap of stones together. "Night?" Jacques asked Defarge. "Tonight." "Where?" "Here." They looked silently at one another. "Show me," Defarge told Jacques. "Beyond that hill," Jacques said. "Good. When do you stop working?" "At sunset." "Will you wake me up before you leave? I haven't slept in 2 days." "I will, as promised." Jacques woke Defarge up before returning home. That night, he and the villagers had their supper and waited inside instead of slept. Night came. 4 dirty men crashed through the chateau where Gabert stayed. Soon the chateau was on fire. The rider jumped on his horse and ran for help. The sacristan rang the bell for help, but Jacques did nothing. His villagers, even the police and soldiers, did nothing to stop it from burning. Thinking that Gabert was guilty of taking their money through rent and taxes, taking their money through rent and taxes, the villagers stormed his house and tried to take him out by force. Gabert went up the roof and hid behind the chimneys, where he stayed until dawn came. Slowly the people left, and Gabert was left to live another day. Chapter 24. Drawn to the Roadstone Rock. Jarvis was in his office, speaking with Charles, when a muddied letter was placed on his desk. It was addressed to one of Turson's Bank's long lost clients, the Marquis de Valmont of France. Valmont of friends. I know him, Charles lied to Jarvis. I'll take the letter to him. Once he was alone, Charles secretly read the letter. Prison of the Abbey Preface, June 21st, 1792. After being in danger for a long time, I have been captured and brought to Paris. I have been accused of treason against the people because I have helped an emigrant and am in danger of losing my life. Monsieur, also known as the Marquis, please save me from this prison and my death. Your suffering servant, Gabert. Though Charles instructed Gabert to give whatever he was inherited to the people, the crimes committed by his family against the poor has now placed Gabert in danger. He must return to Paris. Charles returned to Consensed to speak with Jarvis, who was preparing to leave for Paris and save the French branch of Consensed Bank. He had given him the letter. Charles lied. I have given him the letter, Charles lied. Please give this message to a prisoner in the Abbey named Gabert. He has received the message and he will come. He leaves tomorrow. The following evening, Charles embraced Lucy before going out. He left 2 letters with messengers addressed to Lucy and Dr. Manette, explaining why he left and that he would write to them as soon as he arrived in Paris. Quietly, secretly, he left on his secret mission to the Lodestone Rock. Book the 3rd, The Track of the Storm. Chapter 1, In Secret. Defarge led Charles to his prison cell in Paris. Are you the husband of Dr. Manette's daughter? He whispered to him as they walked. Yes, Charles said, looking at Defarge in surprise. I'm Defarge, the wine-keeper. You have probably heard of me. Yes, my wife went to your wine shop to get her father. Why did you return to France? I need to help someone. Too bad. Will I be given a fair trial here? Who knows? Other people have gone through worse. But that's not my fault. Citizen Defarge, Charles said. Defarge just glared at him. Charles continued to plead with him. Would you please let Mr. Jarvis Lorry of Consensed Bank know that I am now a prisoner of La Force? But Defarge answered, my duty is to the country and the people. I can't help you. La Force was a dark and dirty prison, filled with men and women of nobility. But Charles was not placed in the chamber. Instead, he was placed inside a solitary cell. Why am I placed here? He asked the jailer. How should I know? Can I buy pen, ink, and paper? No, just your food. There was a chair, a table, and a straw mattress inside a tiny cell. Charles walked to and fro in his cell, counting its measurements, and tried to erase the thoughts of death from his mind. Chapter 2, The Grindstone. The French branch of Consensed Bank was located in the home of former Marquis, who had fled France. Jarvis Lorry walked in this office, secretly thankful that none of his loved ones were with him in this terrible place. But the door suddenly opened, and in came Dr. Manette with Lucy. What happened? What are you here? Why are you here? Jarvis asked them, surprised. Charles is here. He's in prison. Where? The bell outside the gate rang, and there was a sound of feet shuffling into the courtyard. What's that? Dr. Manette asked, turning towards the window. Don't look out, Jarvis called out. Don't worry. They can't harm me. I have been in a bastard prisoner. My experience has safely brought me and Lucy here. Where is he now? Jarvis asked Lucy. La Force. Don't worry, I have not heard of any bad news regarding Charles. Just stay calm. Let me talk to your father alone. Once Lucy had left the room, Jarvis locked the door and opened his window blinds. Down at the courtyard were two noblemen, their false eyelashes and mustaches falling from their faces as they turned to grindstones. They could hardly see anything, with their tangled hair and blood getting in the way. 40 or 50 men and women of nobility, all sweaty and bloodied, were also at the gate, waiting for their turn at the grindstone. Around them was a common man, who guarded them with bloodied hatchets, knives, and bayonets tied to their waists in scraps of silk. They are murdering the prisoners, Jarvis said to Dr. Manette. If you really have the power over those devils, then come to La Force right away, before it's too late. Dr. Manette stepped out onto the courtyard. Soon Jarvis saw him with men crying out, "Long live the bastard prisoner!" Help his family members in La Force. Save Evermonde. Chapter 3, The Shadow. Jarvis found a house for Lucy, her daughter, and Miss Pross to stay in. Back at work in his office, he had another visitor. "Do you know me?" the man asked Jarvis. "I've seen you somewhere," Jarvis said. "My wine shop, perhaps." Jarvis realized it was Defarge. "Did Dr. Manette send you?" he asked him, all excited. "Yes," Defarge said, handing Jarvis a note from Dr. Manette. "Charles is safe, but I can't leave yet. I have asked the messenger to give Lucy a note from Charles. Let the barner see his wife. Will you accompany me to where his wife lives?" Laurie asked Defarge. He was bothered when Defarge said yes, but in a cold and mechanical way. Jarvis and Defarge went to the courtyard, where they found Madame Defarge knitting with the Vengeance. They went to Lucy's house and delivered the note from Charles. "Dearest, be brave while your father is protecting me. Don't reply to this note. Kiss our child for me." Lucy kissed one of Madame Defarge's hands and to thank her, but she just continued knitting. Madame wishes to meet those she needs to protect," Jarvis explained. "Is that your child?" Madame asked, pointing at little Lucy. "Yes, there's one and only," Jarvis replied. "I've seen enough," Madame said to her husband. "Let's go. As a wife and mother, I beg you to please use your power to protect my husband," Lucy pleaded. "Madame, all our lives we've seen our sisters, women, and their children suffer from poverty, hunger, thirst, misery, oppression, neglect. What makes you think we'd be bothered by your problems?" Madame de Vengeance and Defarge left Lucy with Jarvis, leaving Lucy with Jarvis. "Be brave," Jarvis told Lucy. "We're doing fine so far." "Madame scares me." "Stop that. There's no need to worry," Jarvis said, though he was secretly bothered at how the Defarges acted. Chapter 4, Calm in Storm. Dr. Manette returned after 4 days. He kept his experiences a secret from Lucy. Only Jarvis knew that many prisoners had already been killed at La Force. In fact, more than 1,000 were executed while he was away. our prisoners faced a tribunal that decided if the prisoner would be returned to his cell, released, or executed. Since the doctor was once a prisoner of the Bastille, the tribunal decided not to execute Charles but place him back in his cell in safe custody. Jarvis was worried that being inside La Force would make the doctor ill once again, but the doctor reassured him, saying, "My stay at the Bastille was not fruitless. I will use my experience to help my daughter now." The doctor became the inspecting physician of 3 prisoners, including La Force. Because of his work, he was able to take care of Charles personally. Many times he delivered verbal messages and even letters from Charles to Lucy. But no matter how hard the doctor worked to free Charles, or at least bring him to trial, change had begun. The king and queen were both tried and executed, and yet everything stayed the same. Prisons remained full of people, both bad and innocent. Many people were executed by la guillotine. Before the doctor knew it, a year and a half had passed. He was the respected and beloved prison physician, yet his son-in-law, Charles, remained a prisoner. Chapter 5. The Wood Sire. One day, Dr. Manette said to Lucy, "There is an upper window in the prison. Charles can sometimes look out of it. At 3 in the afternoon, he thinks he might be able to see you. If you stood at a certain place, but don't make any sign that you recognize him, because it will be dangerous. Show me, and I'll go there every day." Lucy said. Lucy stood in that spot every day, no matter what the weather was. Sometimes she brought little Lucy along when the weather was fine. On one of her early visits, she met a man with a wooden shed near the prison cell. The wood sire was Jacques, the road worker. Jacques noted that Lucy would come to the same spot every day. "But it's not my business," he said to himself. Meanwhile, Lucy thought it would be good to make friends with Jacques. She greeted him every day and gave him money for drinking, which she always accepted. One snowy day in December, Dr. Manette gave her the good news. "He has been placed in the conciergerie and will be tried tomorrow. I promise you, Charles will be a free man in a few hours." Chapter 6. Triumph. 15 prisoners had already been condemned to death before Charles faced the tribunal of 5 judges, 1 public prosecutor, and the jury. The public prosecutor accused Charles of being an immigrant, and therefore an enemy of the Republic who must be executed. "Take off his head," the audience yelled. The president rang a bell to silence the people. "It's true you lived in England for many years?" "Yes." "And you don't consider yourself an immigrant?" "No, not as you define it. I gave up my title as Marquis. I left everything I had to work for in England on my way many years ago. I did not make money off the efforts of the people." "What's your proof?" "Dayeon, Fire, Gabert, and Alexander Manette can prove I speak the truth. But is it true you married in England?" "Yes, I married Lucy Manette, the daughter of Dr. Manette." "Why did you return to France just now?" "I came to save Theophile Gabin." Dr. Manette was called next. He told the tribunal that Charles was his first friend after he was released from prison. He also told them Charles had to defend himself from charges of treason against England and at one point, and that he had been a lawyer and devoted husband to his daughter ever since. If the jury wanted Charles to die before, now they wanted him to live. They all clapped when the president gave him verdict free. The crowd carried Charles on the chair covered with the red flag and brought him home, where his family waited. He shook hands with Dr. Manette and Jarvis, embraced Miss Pross, and kissed little Lucy. Finally, carefully, he embraced his wife Lucy and kissed her. Lucy, my dearest, I am home. Chapter 7. A knock at the door. Dr. Manette, Charles, Lucy, and little Lucy sat by the fireplace. Dr. Manette sat next to his granddaughter and told her a story about a fairy who opened a prison ward to free a prisoner who once saved him. Everything was quiet and peaceful until Lucy heard loud footsteps climbing up the stairs. "What's that?" Lucy cried. "Hi, Charles. Save him." There's nothing to be afraid of," Dr. Manette said, but when he opened the door, there were 4 rough men in capes, armed with sabers and pistols. "Evermond, you are again a prisoner of the Republic," one of them said to Charles. "Why?" Charles asked. "You will know tomorrow." Dr. Manette grabbed the man by the end of his red woolly shirt and said, "Do you know me?" Yes, the man answered. "Then why are you taking him? Don't ask any questions. If the Republic demands sacrifices from you, then you must obey." "Who wants him arrested?" the doctor insisted. "He is accused by the citizen and citizeness Defarge, and someone else." "Who?" "You will know tomorrow." With those words, the man arrested Charles. Chapter 8. A Hand at Cards. Miss Pross and Jerry Cruncher stopped for groceries and oil for their lamps, unaware of what happened at home. They stopped by a quiet wine shop called the Good Republican Brutus of Antiquity to buy some wine. As the wine was being measured out for her, Miss Pross saw a man and screamed. The crowd stood up, thinking something bad had happened. But instead they saw a man and a woman staring at each other. "What's the matter?" the man said to Miss Pross in a low voice. "Oh, Solomon, never expected to find you here." "Don't call me Solomon. Do you want me to get into trouble?" Miss Pross burst into tears. "How can you treat your sister this way? Have I been that bad to you?" "Then shut up. Pay for your wine and come with me if you want to talk," Solomon said. He looked at Jerry. "Who is he?" "Mr. Cruncher." "Let him come," Solomon answered. "He looked like he's seen a ghost." Jerry did not look as if he had seen a ghost, but he had nothing. The 3 of them stepped out of the wine shop and into some dark street corner. "If you want to keep me safe, then stay away from me," Solomon said to Miss Pross. "Tell you're not mad at me, and I will stay away," Miss Pross said, as if her brother had not spent all her money and left her. Jerry interrupted them, asking Solomon, "Is your name John Solomon or Solomon John? Because I know you're John. You are a Bailey spy, and I know you use a different last name, 2 syllables." What was it again?" "Bar said a man's voice. It was Curtin." who had suddenly appeared. "Don't be alarmed, Miss Pross," Gordon said to her. "I arrived last night, Mr. Lorry, and I agreed I won't come out until I could be useful. I want to talk to your brother, the spy." "How dare you, Solomon, also known as John Barsad," he said. "I saw you come out of the conservatory about an hour ago." "Let's talk," Gordon said. They left Miss Pross at a safe street corner before heading off to Jarvis's house. Jarvis was in the middle of dinner when they arrived. He immediately recognized Barsad's face. "This is Miss Pross's brother. Pross's brother," Gordon explained. "I also bring bad news. They've arrested Charles again." "When?" Jarvis could not believe what he had just heard. "Just now I heard Barsad speaking with a fellow spy." Gordon replied to Barsad. "Yeah," he said. "I know you're a spy from the Republic. I wonder what the Republic would say when they learned that you are also a spy from the enemy, the English government. I also know you work with a fellow spy, Clyde." "You're wrong. He's been dead for several years," Barsad said. But Jerry said, "No, he's not. There was nothing there but dirt and stones. I saw it. Me and 2 others." Barsad knew he was in trouble. "What do you want?" "Don't you have a key at the conservatory?" Yes. "Let's talk alone," Gordon offered. Chapter 9. The Game Made. "What have you been besides a messenger?" Jarvis said to Jerry while Gordon was having a secret chat with Barsad. After some thought, Jerry replied, "Agriculture character. You've used Tarson's bank to hide your unlawful work, but expect me to defend you when we return to England." "You can't use the bank that way. Please, sir, I was barely paid by those medical doctors to that dirty job. Besides, my business never did well, with my wife always praying against it." "Disgusting," Jarvis said. "But if you must fire me, then won't you please allow my son to be your errand boy and take care of his mother? I promise to be a good grave digger and keep the deer where they should be, inside their graves, not outside. If you do as you promised, then I might still be your friend," Jarvis said to Jerry. Gordon turned to Barsad. "Goodbye, Barsad. Our plan is made. You have nothing to fear from me." Once Jarvis asked him what their arrangement was. Once Jarvis was alone with Gordon, he asked him what their arrangements was. "I made arrangements to see Charles once, if he is convicted." "That wouldn't save him." "I know. Don't tell Lucy of the plan, and don't tell her I'm here. It will only add to her problems," Gordon said. Before he left, he turned to Jarvis and asked, "How does she look now?" "Anxious, but still beautiful." Gordon sighed. He left Jarvis and passed by the chemist's shop to buy new packets of special chemicals. The next day he secretly entered the country courtroom where Charles was being tried. The president asked the accused, "Who accuses this man?" "Ernest Defarge, wine shop owner. His wife Terrace and Alexander Manette. Dr. Manette stood up, pale and trembling. Who says I accuse my son-in-law? He lies. The president called a farce. I know Dr. Manette. He was inside card 105 North Tower. When Buster was taken over, I found a letter hidden inside a chimney. It's a letter written by Dr. Manette. Read it, the president commanded. Chapter 10. The Substance of the Shadow. I, Alexander Manette, physician and vivius of sound minds, write this letter in December 1767, on a cloudy moonlight night. Last December 22nd, 1757, the Marquis de Evermond and his brother forced me to see a young and beautiful woman. When I saw her, her arms was tied up, and she was mad with fever. She kept saying, "My husband, my father, and my brother," before counting to 12 and screaming. I used whatever medicine the brothers had to help her. Then the older man, the Marquis de Evermond, told me there was another patient. He was a handsome young boy, dying from a chest wound. I asked him how he got the wound. The elder man said it was in a cruel voice. The dog forced my brother to draw his sword against him. The boy said, "The woman is my sister." The nobleman wanted her, though she was married, and her husband was sick and dying. They tied him to a cart and drove him until he died. The nobleman raped my sister. I hit my younger sister, then tracked his brother down. I killed him, but he stabbed me with his sword. I tried to kill him, but he stabbed me with his sword. The boy tried to get up to face the nobleman. "Marquis," he said to him, "you and your brother will pay for your sins." At those final words, he dropped dead. 26 hours later, his sister fell into a coma. She died a week later. The brothers tried to pay me with gold, but I refused. I wrote the minister a letter to tell them about what happened. One day, the wife of the Marquis came to see me. She learned of what her husband and brother-in-law did to the young woman and wanted to help her. She didn't know the girl had died. Together with her unborn child, she wished to help the sister. She was afraid her son would suffer from the evil her husband committed. But I didn't know where to find the girl. I brought her to her carriage, where her little boy Charles waited. She said to me she would leave with her son her jewels for him to give to the family of the woman if he ever found them. That was the first and last time I saw her. That night the Marquis and his brother kidnapped me. The Marquis burnt the letter I had written and threw me into this prison. I, Alexander Manette, on December 31st, 1767, condemned the Marquis and are the descendants for all their crimes. The vote was unanimous. Thus, death to Charles Darnley within 24 hours. Chapter 11. Dusk. Charles and Lucy embraced for the last time. Dr. Manette tried to kneel at his feet, but Charles stopped him, saying, "Don't be comforted. Please forgive me. God bless you." God bless you. Charles was let out. Lucy passed out. Gordon quietly approached them and said, "Shall I bring her to the carriage? She's light. I can handle it." Once home, Carton laid Lucy down on one of the couches. Little Lucy embraced her favorite friend tightly. Carton, you've come. Please help my mother and father. Carton lovingly brought her cheeks to touch little Lucy before kissing her mother on the cheek and whispering to her, a life you love. Carton spoke to Dr. Manette. Tried to talk to the judges and the authorities again. Maybe they'll change their minds. Let's meet at Tarson's at 9. Jarvis led him to the door. I've lost our hope, Jarvis said tearfully. You're right, he's going to die, Carton said before he left. Chapter 12. Darkness. Carton entered Dr. Defarge's wine shop, looking especially neat. Defarge and his wife were there, together with the Vengeance and Jacques 3, who was a part of the jury. In French, Carton asked for some wine. Madame Defarge couldn't stop looking at him. English, she said. She asked him as she served him the wine. Yes, madame, Carton replied, just like Evermond. He heard her say as she returned to her counter. Carton secretly listened to their conversation. You must kill them all, Madame Defarge said. Can't you spare a doctor? Defarge said. Can't you spare the doctor? Defarge said. No, Madame angrily replied. The Evermond brothers will pay for what they did for murdering my sister, her husband, and my brother. They will pay for separating me from all my true family. Dr. Manette was late for the meeting with Jarvis and Carton. Where are my tours? Let me work. What's to happen if I can't finish these shoes? The two men comforted the doctor as he sat on the chair weeping. Carton picked up the doctor's coat, which has fallen onto its pocket. Far from its pocket. It was a passport for the doctor, Lucy and little Lucy. He gave it to Jarvis together with his own passport. Hold on to it while I visit Charles in prison. The doctor and Lucy are in danger. My spy tells me that the Defarges have a woodworker friend who has seen Lucy. I'm sure they'll use him to accuse Lucy of making signs and signals to prisoners. They might even include the doctor and little Lucy in their scheme. Get your carriage ready by 2 in the afternoon tomorrow. We'll be leaving for England. Chapter 13. 52. At 1 o'clock, 2 hours before the execution, Charles's prison door opened. There stood Carton, smiling at him and signaling for him to be quiet. You're not a prisoner? No, but I know one of the keepers here. Quick, put on my shoes, put on my clothes. The Charles followed Carton's command. He said, This will never work. Don't add your death to my bitterness. Shut up and write what I say, Carton said. Charles sat on the table and wrote what Carton dictated to him. Meanwhile, Carton released the vapor from the chemical he had brought from the chemist. Charles fainted in Charles' arms. Carton dressed himself in Charles' clothes and tied his hair back with Charles' ribbon from calling bar said into the room. Take him to the carriage. Tell Mr. Lorry he needs air to be conscious again. I will keep my promise to you. Go. Barset and 2 other men brought the unconscious Charles out of his cell. At 2 o'clock, the prison guard brought Carton to a large dark room. Some men and women was crying, others walking out, but most were quiet and looking at the ground. A young lady came up to him and said, Citizen Nevermond, I am a poor little seamstress who was with you at La Force. Carton said, Yes, what were you accused of? I forgot. Plots. Though heaven knows I am innocent, will you please hold my hand? It will give me more courage. As he held her hand, the girl looked at him, first with doubt, then amazement. Are you dying for him? She whispered. Yes, and for his wife and child. Will you let me hold your hand, stranger? To the very end. As this happened, Jarvis, Dr. Manette, Lucy, and Charles safely traveled out of France back to England. Chapter 14. The knitting done. Madame Defarge met with Jacques Juryman and the Vengeance at the home Jacques the Woodsire and discussed their scheme against Lucy, Dr. Manette, and little Lucy. Madame gave the Vengeance her knitting. Take it to my usual chair. I will be there before the execution. She walked out of the Manette's house, and the sharp dagger hidden in her waist, with a loaded pistol hidden in her breast, and the sharp dagger hidden at her waist. She was sure Lucy would be so upset over Charles' execution that she would talk badly about it. The madam would then have a proof she needed to charge them of sympathizing with the prisoner and have all of them executed. Miss Pross was washing her eyes by the basin when she saw a figure standing in the room. The basin crashed and water flew towards Madame Defarge's feet. Where is the wife of Evremond? She asked Miss Pross in French. Miss Pross stood in front of Lucy's room. You'll never take her, she said in English. But Madame Defarge realized the room were all messy. They had all left. She headed for the main door, but Miss Pross stopped her. She could not draw her knife against Miss Pross. She brought out her gun. Miss Pross struck at it. The gun exploded. Madame Defarge was dead. Miss Pross quickly locked all the doors of the house and hurried away. She tossed the door key in the river, then met Jerry at the cathedral, their meeting place, so they could leave for England. Do you hear anything in the streets? She asked him. The usual, he replied. What? I can't hear you. Miss Pross has gone deaf. Chapter 15. The footsteps die out forever. Down with Evremond, the man in the crowd yelled. Shut up, Barsad said to him. Let him be at peace. Curtin looked at Barsad and Plea as he walked by, but said nothing. Many women sat in chairs right in front of the guillotine and knitted. But the Vengeance kept looking for Madame Defarge. Where is Teresa? She is going to miss the execution. Curtin held the young woman's hand as the execution began. I have a cousin, an orphan just like me. She's my only relative. Do you think I will miss her that much while we wait for her in heaven? The woman asked Curtin. Don't worry, in heaven there is no time, and there are no worries, Curtin replied. Curtin kissed the young lady on for the first and last time, before she was executed. I am the resurrection and the life, says the Lord. He who believes in me, though he were dead, shall live. Whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. With those words, Sidney Curtin faced the guillotine and died. People said that his face looked the most peaceful. His last thought was the vision of the future. I see Barsad and Miss and Clyde, Defarge, the Vengeance, the juryman, the judge, all dying by the guillotine. I saw a new, beautiful city, filled with brilliant people within who enjoy freedom. I see my loved ones, the ones I have sacrificed my life for, peaceful, useful, happy in the England we will never see. Dr. Manette will be old but well, taking care of his patients. Jarvis will die a happy old man and return to heaven. Lucy and Charles will have another boy who will bear my name. They will die, old and happy, having loved me as much as they loved each other. I see their little boy growing up successful and bringing honor to my name. He will also have a little boy, and tell him about it. Tell him about me. It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.